Hey gang, welcome back to Modeling Joe's Arcade. This is the 10th episode, and we're starting to get places. This time around, we are modeling light switches. That's right, gonna go for this light switch right here. Got, as usual, some notes that I'll be working off of. And today's music of choice is Swingin' for the Fences, album by Gordon Goodwin's Big Phat Band. It is some top-notch jazz. So, without further ado, we'll get into it here. So, thinking through how I want to model this, something I've been using a lot more lately has been the Follow Me tool. So I am going to, I think, make use of that. And let's see. I'm going to use a rectangle to start. Let me pull up my notes there. So yeah, we're going to start with a rectangle that is very precise, 4.61 across and 4.97 down. 4.61. And I can just connect that guy. And we're going to round those corners. 24. We've got a radius of 0.375. I'm seeing that from some supplemental notes that I have from my field visit. So we will pull this radius over, and so I'm going to also measure out 0.375 from there. Delete that, and I can delete that too. Not going to need it. I'll finish quartering that thing. Let's go 0.375. And which one do I want here? This edge. Don't need that or those. Measure back over here. 0.375. Okay. And up here, last one, 0.375. It was snapping for me already, but I was too slow to think about it. And we'll just move that one. Delete and delete. Cool. So that's the basic outline of what we're going for. And from there, just need to set up a face to bring along this thing. So 0.375 over is how that bevel is laid out, and then it is 0.15 tall or thick. And what I'm going to do next is just kind of eyeball an arc in here. Just something that looks right. That's not half bad. From a different angle. Always good to check different angles. It looks pretty good too. So I'm going to delete this face because I think it might get in the way, and I'm going to now grab my Follow Me tool. And try to bring that thing, oh boy. Getting all kinds of problems here. It's not what I want. There we go. Drag it along like this. And finish it up. And I still have got some kinds of problems going on. But let's reverse this face. Orient to that and see if we can't see what's going on. My suspicion is that with 12 sides, that arc may be a little bit too robust for this small of a dimension. So I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to do another arc, and I'm going to try 8 sides. Navigate up here. And just try to get something in that looks right again. Sure, why not that? That looks pretty good. And we will try again with the Follow Me tool. It's always a control click. And yeah, I do think that is what the problem is, because now with less sides it's working a little better, but it still has not worked perfectly. I'm going to try probably one more arc here and see if I can get that to work with 6 sides. After that, I'll evaluate if it looks like it's going to work at all. If I get too few sides, it's not going to look real good. But that's really, really close. Let's try an arc with 5 sides. Eventually we'll get this. SketchUp, great software, but not super easy to work with organic shapes. Drag that around. Still got that one face missing. I'm going to roll with this and see what I can figure out. So let's grab that, reverse that face, orient my faces. And I want to view hidden geometry here so I can see, you know, exactly what's going on. And I think, yeah, looks like we've got kind of an overlap here that is causing problems. So that's very interesting. I'm going to grab that piece . Whew, this is getting to be real tiny dimensions here. It's very touchy. I'm going to just, don't want to delete that. I'm going to delete some of the extra geometry in there. Let's see if I can close this up somehow. I want to make sure also that I'm not deleting other stuff that I want to keep around. To that end, I think I'm going to grab this thing and I'm going to move it onto the floor. Let's delete that. Don't need it. There's actually a lot of faces here that I don't need, come to think of it. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time trying to fix something that doesn't need to be fixed. Don't actually need that face. Or that, or that. These are all kind of unnecessary. I'm just looking for a top and bottom. And to get rid of some straight lines too. Let's put this in a group. That makes it a little harder to mistakenly blow away stuff that I want to keep outside the model. And delete that guy. And we don't need those. Weird how it's deleting those extra lines there. I haven't seen that before. That actually made it easier for me. I had to delete less stuff than I planned on, but still strange. And I'm going to delete these corners and start them from scratch, because something just isn't right there. You know what it's doing? It's deleting some of the hidden geometry automatically when visible lines are deleted. Let's just do something like this. And generate these faces back. Can I do that and get them both? Sure can. So let's do that. Whoa, boy. This is some tricky camera movement here. Even with the 3D mouse, it is not simple. And it doesn't help that the details are just so incredibly small. I do want to grab these and make them hidden so they don't stand out from the rest of my geometry. And I also want to close this thing off so I can make sure it does close. And look at that, it did not. Oh. Right, that's going to be a pain. If there's something wrong with this where it does not want to close, that is going to be aggravating to solve at the very least. I can do that. Something in here is not in plane. And I can roughly figure out what area it's in. Something in here. No, that's because those are just triangles. If I do that and that, it's like there's just something going on right in here that it does not want to create a closed area on top. If I do this, it'll do everything but that little area. So I'm going to cheat this a little bit. Don't tell anybody. And I'm going to close it like that. And I will hide these as well. Such a small area being out of plane, it's not worth spending a whole bunch of time fighting over it to find out what the cause is. And we'll create this. Select these edges and hide them. And go back and get that other edge that I did not get. Okay. Now what's next? Gotta say, this Gordon Goodwin's really got me grooving a little bit. So next I've got probably the switches. In fact, there's not really hardly anything else to get other than the switches. Oh, I should put a backplate on this thing. I wonder if this will close or not. Hey, it didn't close. It's probably going to have the same problem as I did just before. Where I bet I can do this. Oh no, it didn't want to close with that either. Ah, that's why. It's because I wasn't drawn in the group. Silly Eric. Ha. There we go. Okay, now we've got a solid object there. And let's just check my long side is about 4 1/4 and 3 7/8. So I do still have the top up. Now I could kind of tell that was the long side just by looking at it, but sometimes you get perception issues. Rather not make an error based on that. So what do we have here now? We have got kind of like a ball joint, but that's only in 2D, so it's a little easier to work with. I want to go the width of one of these switches. It's constant, okay. Got all kinds of dimensions to sort through. Got about 5/1000 of an inch clearance on either side. I've got 0.3/8 of an inch width, and I think it's tapering in both directions. So we've got 0.38 by 0.42 by 0.38, 0.42. That is the width of the base of this thing. And I'm going to actually come at this a little different. I'm going to draw a profile or a cross section or whatever it would technically be. We'll go 0.55 up. And for now we'll go 0.42. We'll go an inch up. Make that a group inside this group. And we're going to use this method again of drawing a circle that just kind of looks right. For the size of this thing. I'm going to make a copy of this that I can draw my circle onto. So I want to circle it, I don't know, maybe look something like this. Maybe it's a 1/2 inch. Let's try that on for size. Three sixteenths. It's nice and centered. Let's try moving that thing over to here and see how that looks. It looks a little bit weird. I think it needs to be larger. That's my guess. So I'll draw a circle that's 3/4 of an inch wide. And this line has got to get moved up. Oh my goodness, I've created a catastrophe. Let's move that line up quite a bit. Create our 3/4 of an inch circle. And move that thing over. That looks okay. move this thing, copy that circle to here. I think that looks all right for what I'm going for, at least, which is just something that's going to look passable as a something that's fading into the background of this base plate. So now this thing is 0.38 thick, I'm seeing. But the top of this nose is less thick, so that's 5.05 each way less thick. Oh, and it's creating all sorts of crazy hidden geometry. That's not what I want. We're going to break it there and here. And now we'll move this thing 0.05 and 0.05. It's already getting a lot thinner looking. Visually it looks a little weird, so we'll see what it looks like after I adjust this here. 0.42, so it also comes in, we're going to say 0.045 this way and 0.045 that way. I'm going to hide this line. Don't need that stuff anymore. And click out of that. Okay, so now the next thing is, it's not actually this thick. So I'm going to grab it. I'm going to move it to here. And this is honestly just kind of eyeballing what looks right to make this look right. There's no real great way to have gotten in and measured this. But we're going to bring it out. Ooh, what does the picture show us? 1/8 of an inch probably looks okay. Might be a little bit big. Might be okay. And one thing I'm going to do right in here is create a little X on this so that it can be rotated about that point. Let's delete that. It's 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to group it so it's not really interacting with geometry so much. I'm going to copy it over to there just so it can be rotated from both sides. And what I'm going to do then, now that that's lined up, I'm thinking about this on the fly, admittedly, so if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, that is why. I'm going to play around with rotating it because it should be either on or off usually. And I think what I'm going to do, yeah, it's maybe a little crazy, but it's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave this wheel, the full wheel, in here because it'll be mounted on a wall. You won't be able to see it, but it'll be easier to grab it and rotate it so it looks like the switch is either on or off. Since most of the time when games are being played down there, it seems like the lights are off, we're going to turn the switches off, rotate it by 20 degrees in that direction. And I'm going to take a look back at my measurements here. They're spaced 2.17 inches apart. 2.17. And that's out to out. So I will grab that. That's our two switches, spaced appropriately. But, of course, got to center them. So let's go ahead and do that. I can actually use my crosses here to accomplish that. If I grab this midpoint and I bring it to the midpoint of the plate here, and then to the midpoint of the plate over here, that ought to work. Okay, so now that's centered. But there's one other little bit of detail that I have to add here. We'll see, this might end up overwriting some of what I've just done. I'm going to bring that back up. And I'm going to move it. This is going to be a reference here. I'm going to move it an inch up. And I'm going to draw that again as a reference. Just want a vertical line here, an inch up from the center, in the center of one of my switches. Because there is a little cutout in the face of this thing for the switches. So that is 0.39 inches. Should be there. And it is 0.93 deep. 0.39. Bam. I can move that and see how well I have gotten this thing to fit. Pretty well, I would say. Let's see what happens. I'm genuinely not sure if I take one of these and I rotate it back, or 20 degrees. Because what I'd like to achieve here is to find a spot that I can put this and rotate it, and it looks right, basically. So to not labor too long on that without actually just doing it, I've put it there, and I can rotate this thing. Should be able to rotate it as much as I want, and that will appear to be relatively in the same or correct place. So let's just put that there. And I would say, except for the fact that the switch has rotated past where it is possible to rotate, it does seem like that's in the right spot. So I'm going to undo back to have my switch. Nope, that was fine. So I'll leave that where it is, and I guess I'll just rotate this guy 20 degrees back again. So the switch is off. I'm going to pop back in here, move this thing out of the way so that I can see what I'm doing. I want to copy this I'm going to copy it along with the spacing of the switches. I'm going to make it a 1/16 of an inch deep. And I will grab just some colors and make that black. Oh. And we're going to make the rest of this our brass color. I'm a little thrown because I don't see where my brass color is. I'm going to take crisp skin though while I'm thinking of it. I'm going to make this switches crisp skin colored. Not sure that's quite right. There's my brass color. That doesn't look half bad. Either way, let's move it and see what they look like together. If I move 6 inches, I think I'm looking for more of like an ivory color for my switches. So let's go colors and look for that. Something like this maybe more. Or like that. I think that's more it. Brass is hard to get and it's going to depend on the lighting. But I think I've got to stick with what I've got for that, at least for the moment. And we will rotate this thing back up or back to vertical. And I've lost it. So that's inconvenient. Let's bring that back. And I can rotate it about here. So that's handy. Let's go 90 and then 180 because it will end up facing this way. And we will move it out to join our ever-growing stack of electrical details, which truthfully, there are less and less of them to be made. We're getting near the end of them. Turning off my hidden geometry there, I'm realizing I also want to turn off these lines. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's get to an angle that I can actually see what I'm picking. And grab those. And, oh, not erase. Oh, definitely don't erase. That was the wrong click. I'm very apologetic. I can't be with this kind of smooth jazz going on. It's hard to be apologetic. Let's hide that thing though. And we've got our wall plate. We'll see. I may need to make another different brass texture for this thing. Let's see what happens if I just copy it and I call it brass dark. And I just make it a little bit, well, darker. Yeah. And I don't know. I think it's going to start looking pretty gross pretty quick. I think if anything, it should have a little bit more red to it. Kind of like that. But because it's metallic, it's just not going to come out very awesome. Might be a little better. I've still got my black back there. I think that's just a touch better than what it was. So we'll roll with it. Anyway, that's another item down. Thanks as usual for watching Joe's Arcade. Modeling Joe's Arcade. That's what this series is called. Modeling Joe's Arcade. All right. Bye-bye.